герой.
There is a place with tall mountains, untamed forests, and old customs that people today don't know about. Welcome to Kamchatka, one of the world's most beautiful and mysterious places. In this video, we'll look at both the beautiful scenery and the unique cultural practices of the country's native groups. One practice that might surprise you is the exchange of wives. Why would someone do something like that in this remote part of the world? Keep watching to find out. Does Kamchatka really exchange wives? Kamchatka is in the far east of Russia. It is a land of huge differences, and its landscape is a big part of what makes it so strange and different. Kamchatka is the best place to see what it's like to live in a place that has been shaped by both fire and ice. One of the first things you'll notice about Kamchatka is its beautiful volcanic landscape. There are more than 300 volcanoes on the peninsula, and 29 of them are still active. Volcanoes like these don't just stay in the background. They're always changing the land by making rough terrain, huge lava fields, and hot springs that bubble up from the ground. Kamchatka is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of this important volcanic activity. Scientists and people looking for excitement come from all over the world to see the area's most famous volcanoes, like Klyuchevskaya Sopka, which is the largest volcano in Eurasia. People come here to see the raw power of nature because explosions happen here more often than almost anywhere else on Earth. It's not just about the mountains, though. The area around the volcano is made up of dramatic mountain ranges, deep valleys, and wide rivers that were formed by eruptions over many centuries. It's rough, wild, and stunningly beautiful. These volcanoes also keep the land healthy, which helps support Kamchatka's wide range of plants and animals, which we will talk about later. Kamchatka is more than just mountains. It is very isolated because of where it is. Picture this. It's a huge point that sticks out into the Pacific Ocean and the Bering Sea. It's almost as big as California. The cold Arctic winds are on one side and the warmer Pacific winds are on the other. Because of its unique location, this land is cut off from the rest of Russia by the huge Sea of Okhotsk and rough mountain ranges. The people who live in Kamchatka have changed their past and way of life because they are so far away from everything else. The area was mostly isolated from the rest of the world for a long time because it could only be reached by sea or air. In fact, Kamchatka was a military zone during the Soviet era, and not even Russian citizens were allowed to go there without special permission. This level of privacy has kept Kamchatka's wild nature untouched, making it a safe haven for animals and a dream destination for people who want to experience adventure away from the crowds. People who live in Kamchatka have to deal with some pretty bad weather. Where you are makes a huge difference in the weather. In the north, the winters are long and extremely cold, and the climate is subarctic. It's possible for temperatures to drop below freezing, and snow can pile up for several feet. It's not rare for people to live alone for months at a time during the hard winter months. However, Kamchatka doesn't always have freezing weather. Geothermal energy warms natural hot springs in parts of the area that are warm because of the volcanoes. The icy settings are very different from these thermal areas, which make for an interesting mix of snow-covered scenery with hot rivers and pools. The coasts get warmer in the summer, and there is a lot of wildlife, lush green woods, and rivers full of fish. Kamchatka is one of the most interesting and difficult places to live because of its unusual weather, with icy winters, hot springs, and active volcanoes. The land is both beautiful and uncertain, and the people who live there are always reminded that they are at the mercy of the weather. In short, Kamchatka's environment is a crazy mix of fire, ice, and being cut off from the rest of the world. This has shaped not only the scenery, but also how people live and grow in this faraway part of the world. Kamchatka's history of being cut off and limiting access. It's not just a fact of geography that Kamchatka is far away. It has also been a big factor in its past, especially during the Soviet era. The world didn't know much about this remote area for a long time. Because it was hard to get to in the past, it still has a mysterious feel to it. Kamchatka was a very important defense area during the Cold War. Because of its position, it was a great place for the Soviet Union to keep an eye on what was going on in the Pacific. There were military camps, submarine hangars, and rocket launch sites on the peninsula. All of these were very important for protecting the country. Because of this, Kamchatka was put under tight military rule, and it was very hard to get to the area. Even people from Russia needed special permission to go to Kamchatka at this time. Strangers? Don't bother with it. It was off limits. This area was a military base that was cut off from the rest of the world for many years. Because of the high level of security and privacy, Kamchatka's unique scenery and diverse wildlife were not touched by tourists or outside growth for most of the 20th century. With the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, things began to change. The end of the Cold War and a drop in military pressures made Kamchatka slowly start to let people in. The military presence became less strict, and movement limits were dropped. People who aren't in the military or doing research could start exploring this rural area for the first time in decades. The change from a highly guarded, closed area to a public area didn't happen quickly, though. There wasn't much infrastructure, and going to Kamchatka was still hard because there weren't many planes or other basic ways to get there. But over time, the area became easier to get to, letting first-time travelers, scientists, and nature lovers find Kamchatka's wonders. Today, Kamchatka is becoming a dream place to visit for people who want to see untouched nature in one of the world's most remote areas. Many years ago, it was hidden away, but now people come from all over the world to see its true beauty. People looking for adventure come to walk in its rough mountains, across lava fields, and close to some of the world's most active volcanoes. Aside from that, scientists are also interested in Kamchatka's unique ecosystems and natural traits. Volcanoes, hot springs, and animals in the area make it easy to do study and find new things. Eco-tourists and people who love nature come here to see bears fishing for salmon in clean rivers or to be amazed by the vast landscapes that look like they have been frozen in time. It's funny that Kamchatka's past of being cut off from the rest of the world has made it one of the last great wildernesses on Earth. Its history as a hidden military zone has kept its landscapes and ecosystems in great shape. Now that it's open to everyone, it's become a home for people looking for adventure and travel in one of the most beautiful parts of the world. UNESCO World Heritage status and natural biodiversity. Kamchatka is not like any other place. It is full of natural beauty that makes it internationally famous. This prestigious award brings attention to Kamchatka's amazing rock formations and rich wildlife, as well as the pressing need to safeguard these natural treasures for future generations. Kamchatka's UNESCO standing, which was given in 1996, shows how important it is to the whole world. What's so great about this area? It has one of the world's biggest and most active volcanic zones, with tall volcanoes, steaming geysers, and boiling hot springs that make the scenery seem like it's from another world. A big reason why UNESCO decided to protect it was that its seismic action is unmatched in terms of both size and severity. But Kamchatka is more interesting than just its mountains. There are many types of ecosystems on the peninsula, from thick woods and coastal areas to high fields and snow. Many kinds of plants and animals can live in these very different environments, which makes Kamchatka one of the biologically richest places on Earth. The fact that Kamchatka was recognized by UNESCO shows how important it is to protect these fragile ecosystems. Due to its remoteness, the area hasn't seen many people, but that's starting to change as more people discover its beauty. As interest in Kamchatka grows, so does the duty to protect the unique features that make it special for future generations. The plants and animals in Kamchatka are as varied as the scenery, making it a wildlife lover's dream. A lot of the species that live here are only found in this area. One famous animal is the brown bear, and Kamchatka is home to one of the world's biggest bear populations. In the summer, these bears are often seen fishing for salmon in the clean rivers, which brings people from all over the world. The rivers in this area are famous for having some of the biggest wild salmon runs in the world. Not only do these fish feed the bears, but their journey also helps whole ecosystems. Animals like sea otters, hawks, and many others depend on this yearly food supply. The rivers in Kamchatka are the heart of a complex web of life. The beaches of Kamchatka are also full of wildlife. Once so rare that they were almost hunted to extinction, sea otters have come back amazingly well in the area's protected waters. Along the coast, you can see animals floating in groups, called rafts, and having fun. Seals, sea lions, and different kinds of whales also like to swim in these areas, which makes Kamchatka a great place for marine wildlife. To the land's left, huge woods with birch, alder, and pine trees make for beautiful summer foliage. Wildflowers and low-lying plants that have learned to survive in the hard climate can be found in the tundra. Kamchatka's plants are just as important to the environment there as its animals, even though they aren't as well known. Kamchatka is becoming more popular as a place for outdoor tourists and science study. This makes it more important than ever to protect the area. Finding a balance between the need to discover and the need to protect fragile ecosystems is hard. Kamchatka could have protected places and nature parks set up as part of one plan. People are kept in check in these areas to make sure that activities like fishing, tourists, and building don't upset the natural balance. One of the oldest nature reserves in Kamchatka is Kronotsky. It protects its volcanic scenery and diverse wildlife by only letting small, controlled groups of tourists in. Ecotourism is also an important part of protecting the environment. By encouraging eco-friendly habits, the government hopes to teach tourists how to protect Kamchatka's beauty. Tourists are told to be careful not to damage the environment, stay on trails, and be kind to animals in the area. Many tour companies now offer eco-friendly trips that let people see Kamchatka's scenery while leaving as little of an impact on the environment as possible. It is also very important to keep an eye on and protect fish numbers. These important fish are in danger of being overfished and illegally poached, but conservation groups from around the world are trying to keep the salmon runs strong in Kamchatka's rivers, which is good for the whole environment that depends on them. The cultural practices of Kamchatka's indigenous tribes. The beautiful surroundings of Kamchatka are matched by its rich cultural history, which is mostly shown by its native groups, like the Koryaks and Atelmans. For hundreds of years, these strong groups have lived in peace with their hard environment, creating traditions and customs that are deeply rooted in the land and their communities. They depend on fishing, hunting, and taking care of animals. The Atelmans, on the other hand, live in one place and are known for being great at fishing, especially for salmon. The songs, dances, and oral histories of both groups are very rich and are passed down from generation to generation. Their cultural identity is deeply connected to nature, which shows how hard it is to live in such a harsh and remote area. One of the most interesting things about these cultures is the ritual of eternal bonds, in which members of the same tribe trade wives with each other. People from outside the tribes may find this rite strange, but it is very important for keeping the peace within the tribes. The event is carefully planned and usually takes place during important ceremonies or holidays. It helps families stay close, builds trust, and keeps community ties strong. This trade is more than just an interesting traditional thing to do. It represents the core ideals of teamwork and community in indigenous life. Sharing close relationships brings people together, which is important for life in Kamchatka's harsh environment. In the past, this practice may have started as a way for families to stay together during hard times by making agreements with each other to help each other out. This kept families from fighting and built a sense of community. The harsh conditions in Kamchatka have a big effect on the lives of the people who live there. One way to look at the ritual of eternal bonds is as a reaction to the hard conditions of the area. In a place where working together is important, the rite strengthens ties between people, helping families build better support networks that are necessary to get through the hard times on the peninsula. The practice also helps keep things in balance in small, isolated groups of people where things can get tense between people. By trading wives, resources are spread out more evenly. This keeps social groups from forming and makes sure that no one family is left out or hurt. People today have different ideas about the ritual of eternal bonds. Many people in the group still respect the practice as an important part of their culture, even though it isn't done as often these days. Some younger group members may think it's out of date because they are affected by current ideals. For others, though, it represents their legacy and the strength of their ancestors. People from other cultures often don't believe in or agree with the practice because swapping wives can go against the idea of marriage as a private bond. Some people say it might make women seem like objects or take away their freedom. For the native people, though, the practice doesn't mean ownership or abuse. It means togetherness, trust, and survival. In the end, the ritual of eternal bonds shows how important culture is to Kamchatka's native groups and how strong they are even though their environment is hard. Social and economic life in Kamchatka. Kamchatka has had a subsistence economy for hundreds of years, meaning that people there depend on the natural surroundings to stay alive. Their usual way of life is based on fishing, hunting, and taking care of animals. An important food source is fishing, especially for salmon. It gives people food and a way to connect with the land. Meat and fur, which are needed for clothes and protection, come from hunting. Reindeer herding has been very important to the semi-nomadic Koryak groups. It is a tradition that has been passed down from generation to generation and helps them keep their communities going. But changes brought about by modern things are starting to make a big difference in the local business. The area is facing new possibilities and problems because of the growth of tourists, changing government policies, and new markets from outside the region. A lot of tourists can bring in money, but they can also make people worry about too much marketing and the loss of traditional culture values. For the people in the area, finding the right mix between development and cultural preservation has become very important. Even with these changes, Kamchatka's hard climate has made its people feel very connected to each other and dependent on each other. People there are very close to each other because life depends on them working together, helping each other, and trusting each other. The small group of people who live in Kamchatka and the native tribes are very close to each other. This way, no one has to face the difficulties of living in the wild by themselves. This strength comes from their strong link to the land and to each other, showing how important community is in managing the complicated world we live in now. Kamchatka as an emerging tourist destination. Kamchatka is quickly becoming a popular place for daring tourists looking for new adventures. Its untouched scenery, active mountains, and wide range of wildlife are big draws for tourists who want to see more than the usual tourist spots. The area's remoteness makes it more appealing, making it a popular choice for people who want to discover rough, off-the-beaten-path places. Kamchatka is a unique place to go on an adventure, whether you want to see a volcano erupt or go hiking through lush slopes full of wildlife. Because Kamchatka has such a wide range of plants and animals, and a natural setting that is almost untouched, it has a lot of promise for ecotourism. Conservationists are working hard to create environmentally friendly tourist methods that let people enjoy the beauty of the area while also keeping its fragile ecosystem safe. This method tries to find a good mix between tourism and caring for the environment so that both the people who live there and the community benefit from more people visiting. A lot of the time, these projects involve the local community. This gives tourists real experiences and helps the local economy grow. Even though Kamchatka is very appealing, it can be hard for guests to get around. It can be hard to get to because it is so far away. The weather is always bad, and there isn't much infrastructure. Visitors should be ready for weather that changes quickly and a lack of services, which may require them to be flexible and strong. For many discoverers, though, these difficulties only make discovering Kamchatka's wild and raw beauty more exciting, making it a truly unique place to visit. The contrasts of life in Kamchatka. People who live in Kamchatka are very far away from everyone else. Across this huge and rough countryside are small towns, which are usually made up of just a few families. Because these towns are so far away, people who live there may not be able to get to basic services for long periods of time, especially during the hard winter months. Because there aren't many roads, people often have to travel by plane or boat to do simple things like go shopping or get medical care. In this kind of loneliness, group ties are very important. People who live close to each other help each other get through the tough conditions in their area by sharing resources and skills. Nature's rhythms control daily life, and fishing and hunting are important for food. Traditional ways of doing things are not only culturally important, but they are also necessary for the group to stay alive. Over hundreds of years, native groups like the Koryaks and Atelmans have become incredibly tough. They know a lot about their land and its supplies, which helps them stay alive. The Koryaks are very good at managing reindeer, which gives them food, transportation, and clothes. The Atelmans, on the other hand, depend on fishing, especially salmon, for their food and their culture. Because of how harsh their lives are, these groups have come up with ways to live that show how close they are to nature. Seasonal travels, traditional hunting methods, and group events bring them together and make sure that their culture lives on. Their celebrations, which include stories, songs, and rituals that connect them to their elders and the land, show how strong they are. Kamchatka has stunning natural beauty with a wide range of scenery, from lush woods to wild beaches, and big volcanoes and glaciers to break up the monotony. But this beautiful setting comes with big problems. Volcanoes that Discoverize like can explode without warning, and bad weather can make things hard to find and isolate people. The differences between the hard facts of life and the beauty of the scenery shape the daily lives of the people who live there. The area has beautiful views, but it also needs respect and strength. The community's survival depends on how well they can deal with these inconsistencies and find a balance between their daily wants and the beauty of their surroundings. In a way, life in Kamchatka is like a fabric, with strings of loneliness, strength, and stark differences. The difficulties its people face are met by the beauty of their surroundings. This makes for a unique way of life that keeps traditions alive while also embracing modern life. The people of Kamchatka have a deep link to their environment and live their lives in this rural paradise. They show how strong the human spirit can be in the face of nature's harsh conditions. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Kamchatka. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and follow for more exciting content. To keep watching, just click on the next video.